The Senate will come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Senators Baisley. Bridges. Buckner. Coleman. Cutter. Danielson. Exum. Fields. Gardner. Janal. Gonzalez. Hanson. Hinrichsen. Jaquez Lewis. Kirkmeyer. Kolker. Liston. Lundeen. Marchman. Moreno. Mullica. Pelton B. Pelton R. Priola. Rich. Roberts. Rodriguez. Simpson. Smallwood. Sullivan. Van Winkle. Will. Winter. Zenzinger. Mr. President.
Here. Good morning. Roll call is 35 present, 0 absent, 0 excused. We do have a quorum. Will the good senator from Grand Junction please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the journal. Senator Priola.
Good morning, Mr. President. Members, I move that the Senate Journal of Tuesday, February 28th, year of our Lord 2023, be approved and corrected by the Secretary.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. That motion is adopted. Senate Services.
March 1st, 2023, correctly printed Senate Bill 172, correctly introduced Senate Joint Resolution 6, correctly engrossed Senate Bill 108, correctly re-engrossed Senate Bill 61, correctly revised House Bills 1043 and 1072, correctly re-revised House Bills 1005 and 1014, correctly enrolled Senate Bill 23.
Committee reports.
February 28, 2023, the Committee on Finance, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. House Bill 1021 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation, with a recommendation it be placed on the consent calendar. Senate Bill 145 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations. Senate Bill 104 be postponed indefinitely. Senate Bill 147 be postponed indefinitely. February 28, 2023, Mr. President, the Committee on Finance has had under consideration and has had a hearing on the following appointments and recommends that the appointments be placed on the consent calendar. Confirmed member of the Public Employees Retirement Benefit Plans for a term expiring January 1st, 2026, Jennifer Pasquino of Denver, Colorado, to serve as a representative with experience and competence in investment management, finance, banking, economics, accounting, pension administration, or actuarial analysis, appointed. February 28, 2023, the Committee on Business, Labor, and Technology, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 146 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 105 be amended as follows, and as so amended be referred to the Committee on Appropriations with favorable recommendation. February 28, 2023, the Committee on Local Government and Housing, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 111 be amended as follows, and as so amended be referred to the Committee on Appropriations with favorable recommendation. February 28, 2023, Mr. President, the Committee on Local Government and Housing has had under consideration and has had a hearing on the following appointments and recommends that the appointments be placed on the consent calendar and confirm member of the State Housing Board for a term expiring January 31st, 2026, James Martinez of Thornton, Colorado, to serve as a Democrat and resident of the 8th Congressional District, appointed. February 28, 2023, Committee on Local Government and Housing, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. House Bill 1023 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation and with a recommendation that it be placed on the consent calendar.
Message from the House.
February 28, 2023, Mr. President, the House has passed on third reading and transmitted to the Reviser of Statutes House Bill 1025 and 1126. Amended as printed in House Journal February 27, 2023. The House has passed on third reading and transmitted to the Reviser of Statutes House Bill 1172. The House has passed on third reading and transmitted to the Reviser of Statutes Senate Bill 48 and 51. Amended as printed in House Journal February 27, 2023. The House has passed on third reading and returns herewith Senate Bills 46 and 73.
Message from the Reviser.
February 28, 2023, we herewith transmit without comment House Bill 1172 without comment as amended, House Bill 1025 and 1126 without comment as amended, Senate Bill 48 and 51.
Introduction of bills.
House Bill 1062, Representative Morrow, Senator Henriksen, concerning the authority of a metropolitan district to levy a sales tax with voter approval for the purpose of providing parks for recreational facilities or programs.
Local government and housing.
House Bill 1100, Representatives Ricks and Garcia, Senators Huckes, Lewis, and Gonzalez, concerning restrictions on governmental participation in civil immigration detention.
Judiciary.
House Bill 1115, Representatives Mabry and Velasco, Senator Rodriguez, concerning the repeal of statutory provisions prohibiting local governments from enacting rent control on private residential property or a private residential housing unit.
Local government and housing.
House Bill 1139, Representatives Martinez, Senator Simpson, concerning the modification of the salary categorization of locally elected officers in specified counties.
Local government and housing.
House Bill 1140, Representatives Snyder and Evans, Senators Rodriguez and Van Winkle, concerning the requirement that businesses licensed to sell power sports vehicles have a principal place of business.
Business, labor, and technology.
House Bill 1157, Representatives Joseph and Weinberg, Senators Exum and Gardner, concerning the Uniform Unregulated Child Custody Transfer Act.
Judiciary. Members, we have a couple of very important guests with us today. The one and only Representative Sue Ryden and Senator Nancy Todd are with us in the chamber. Thank you for joining us this morning. Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate proceed out of order for consideration of Senate Joint Resolution 6.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The Senate will proceed out of order to take up Senate Resolution, Joint Resolution 6. Consideration of resolutions. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Joint Resolution 6?
Senate Joint Resolution 6, Senators Cutter and Buckner, Representatives Froelich and English, concerning the effort to acknowledge and enshrine in the Constitution the rights of women in the United States.
Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Joint Resolution 06 and ask that it be read at length.
Will the clerk please read Senate Joint Resolution 6 at length?
Senate Joint Resolution 6, Senators Cutter and Buckner, Representatives Froelich and English, concerning the effort to acknowledge and enshrine in the Constitution the rights of women in the United States. Whereas this year marks the 100th anniversary of when the Equal Rights Amendment, ERA, was initially proposed in Congress, many things about American life have changed since then. It took 100 years, but there is now widespread bipartisan support of the Equal Rights Amendment. And whereas the strides made over these past 100 years are not inconsequential, but are still piecemeal when compared to the straightforward declaration of the ERA, which simply states, equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. And whereas we know that women's rights on multiple levels are still being challenged, bodily autonomy, equal pay, and protection from sexual harassment are still being denied. And whereas Jennifer Weiss Wolf, the Brennan Center's Women and Democracy Fellow, noted that the ERA would empower Congress to enforce gender equity through legislation and, more generally, the creation of a social framework to formally acknowledge systemic biases that permeate and often limit women's daily experiences. And whereas among 193 United Nations member states, 85% have a provision in their constitution that specifically addresses gender equality, and 60% have a provision that prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex. And whereas the ERA would transform what is currently implicit into the unambiguous and strengthen the bedrock of our most dearly held American value, that all people are created equal. As one of the first states to allow women to vote, several years before the 19th Amendment gave all women in America this right, Colorado has proudly stood by and for women. The ERA has been duly ratified by the 38 required states. It is long past time to fill the full measure of this storied history, and with Virginia's vote last year, the last of the 38 required, it is time to enshrine the ERA into the U.S. Constitution. And whereas Coloradans and all American women deserve this basic protection of their inherent freedom, now therefore, be it resolved by the Senate of the 74th General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the House of Representatives concurring herein, 1, that women have fought long and hard to have their rights recognized. 2, that women and those identifying as women are still subject to pay, pregnancy, and other forms of discrimination. And 3, that having received the ratification of the 38 states required, it is time for the United States Congress to pass the Equal Rights Amendment.
Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Mr. President. March 1st is the start of Women's History Month, and for the last several decades, our history has been defined by attempts to protect women's rights, which have been threatened across the board, including in doctor's office and the workplaces. The U.S. Constitution doesn't, in fact, guarantee equality of the sexes. Women and LGBTQ folks have been relegated to second-class legal status by courts and by the law. In 1923, suffragist Alice Paul drafted the Equal Rights Amendment, which is very simple, just enshrining our basic rights for equality in the Constitution. For nearly a century, women have been fighting for the passage of this. In 2019, the movement scored a historic victory when Virginia became the 38th and final state required to ratify the amendment. There's nothing in Article 5 that talks about a time limit. And for the first, in fact, for the first 150 or so years of the Republic, there were no time limits at all on proposed amendments. In fact, the very last amendment was proposed by James Madison and added to the Constitution. The last amendment to be added was proposed by James Madison, and it took 203 years to ratify. So, incidents, it's possible, and we need to get this done. Incidents of violence, harassment, and assault towards young women have increased dramatically, along with the rise of suicide and depression. I want all of our young women and trans and LGBTQ youth growing up knowing their rights are protected and they have value as a human being and part of this society. It's time to get this done.
Senator Buckner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am so proud to be one of the sponsors of this important resolution. Equal rights is not just for women of color. It's not just for, it's not just about race, but equal rights is for all women. I want my granddaughters to feel that they have the freedoms they are supposed to have, and I want every woman to realize how important they are. Unfortunately, we have been held down from doing a lot of the freedoms that we have wanted to do, but we have to stand together. No matter what our color, no matter what our religious beliefs, we must stand together. We need to improve equal rights as far as equal pay, and we've all heard about equal pay this week with Senator Danielson and myself sponsoring the equal pay bill. And we just know that this resolution is about more. It's about more. So we can't stop. We have to keep striving. We have to keep making sure that every woman, no matter what her party, no matter what her beliefs are, we all stand together to lift women up. So this resolution is crucial. We should not forget about it. We should live this every day. Thank you so much.
Senator Jaquez Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Colorado ERA passed on November 7th, 1972, with 531,415 votes in favor and 295,254 against. Even 50 years ago, Colorado overwhelmingly wanted equality for all. In 1997, in a case surrounding the state's ERA, the Colorado Court of Appeals said, and this is kind of unbelievable, the presumption that husbands solely own all household goods is a creature of a different era in our society. They recognize that the new era of opinion in Colorado is that we deserve equal rights. Colorado's opinion, we were early on leaders, but the entire nation now agrees this should be enshrined in the US Constitution. Colleagues, this was the very first social justice fight that I ever worked on as a young woman. I raised the money to purchase a license plate where I was living that said ERA now. It was my way of making a statement. It meant so much to me that on my vehicle I could make this important statement about as being a woman and about not having the same rights that men had. I hope that we can all keep this movement going, and I hope you realize how important it is for all Coloradans to be equal. Thank you.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. Of course, I have to stand here in strong support for equal rights, especially for women. Because equal rights really means that we all have an opportunity to thrive. And it shouldn't be an unbalanced approach to equality. We all have a right to pursue the same dreams and opportunities as everyone else. It shouldn't be diminished based on your race, based on your height, based on your economic status, based on your gender. Because when we have equality, I believe it addresses and reduces poverty. When you have equality, more people have access to health care. When you have equality, I believe that it reduces violence in our community. When we have equality, I believe it improves access to education for all. So members, I hope that you join me and support this Equal Rights Amendment resolution today.
Further discussion. Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just would like a moment of personal privilege, please.
Senator Cutter, let's vote on the motion.
Apologies. Thank you.
On the table, and then we'll get to that in just a moment. The motion is the adoption of Senate Joint Resolution 6. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Joint Resolution 6 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Senators Danielson, Hansen, Roberts, Mullica, Exum, Coleman, Jaquez Lewis, Janal, Fields, Winter, Gonzalez, Majority Leader Moreno, Kolker, Marchman, Rodriguez, Priola, Zenzinger, Bridges, Henriksen, Sullivan, please add the president.
Okay.
Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just would like to welcome our wonderful guests from League of Women Voters and American Association of University Women. We're standing over here. We're so pleased you can join us today, along with, of course, our wonderful Representative Sue Ryden and Senator Nancy Todd, who have already been recognized. But thank you so much for joining us today. Oh, and I hear Senator Betty Boyd has also joined us today. So thrilled to hear that. Thank you all for being here.
Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate proceed out of order for a moment of personal privilege by the senator from Wheat Ridge.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The Senate will proceed out of order to take up a moment of personal privilege. Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, colleagues. We have today a joint tribute that I'd like to read just quickly with the House of Representatives on request of Representative Ortiz. Today is Disability Wheelchair Day. And so, Mr. President and colleagues, if it's all right with you, I'd like to read the tribute briefly. Thank you so much. The Senate and the House of Representatives, convened in the 74th General Assembly, hereby recognizes and celebrates Disability Wheelchair Day. If I could have your attention, please.
Members, let's please quiet down to respect the senator in the well.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mostly to respect just the brief statement on the importance of recognizing Coloradans with disabilities with this special tribute. The Colorado House of Representatives would like to celebrate the work of empowering and caring for wheelchair users, their mobility devices, and creating more opportunities for basic access. Since 2008, International Wheelchair Day has worked to highlight the positive impacts mobility devices have in the lives of millions and recognize the great work of providers who support those using wheelchairs. International Wheelchair Day also makes the beginning of March as National Disability Awareness Month, marks the beginning of March as National Disability Awareness Month, which promotes an understanding of the broad spectrum of disability and brings awareness to the millions of people in the world who need wheelchairs but are unable to acquire one. Despite the Americans with Disability Act being law for over 30 years, there is still needed work to secure basic rights and access for all people living with a disability. On request of Representative David Ortiz and Senator Jesse Danielson, given this first day of March 2023 in the state capital, Denver, Colorado. Thank you, members. I'll be brief as I know we have a lot to do today. I really appreciate taking a moment to acknowledge today, even here in this building that is not really all that accessible, where our government sits, where we make decisions about and for people with disabilities. Some places in the building, they can't even go. It's kind of symbolic of the changes that we still have yet to make. So when issues facing the disability rights community come before us in this chamber and in your committees, I sincerely thank you for your time and consideration of those living with a disability, and on today, those who are wheelchair users. Thank you to my colleagues. Thank you, Mr. President.
Third reading of bills. Consent calendar. Will the clerk please read the titles to all of the bills on the consent calendar?
House Bill 1072, Representative Velasco, Senator Robertson will concerning the compensation of civil defense workers. House Bill 1043 by Representatives Lindsay and Pugliese, Senators Janelle and Rich concerning the safety of children and youth through required background checks on adults when a child or youth is placed out of the home with kin, including relatives. Senate Bill 108, Senators Baisley and Winter, Representatives Pugliese and Frizzell concerning temporary reductions in property taxes due.
Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the passage of all the bills listed on the third reading consent calendar, which includes House Bill 1072, House Bill 1043, and Senate Bill 108.
Is there any discussion on any of the bills? Seeing none, the motion is the passage of all of the bills in the third reading of bills consent calendar. Are there any no votes on any of the bills? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1072 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Gonzalez, Malika, Hansen, Majority Leader Moreno, Rodriguez, Fields, Priola, Buckner, Winter, Cutter, Marchman, Jaquez Lewis, Colker, Bridges, Janal, Sullivan, Exum. Please add the president. With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1043 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senators Henriksen, Malika, Exum, Hansen, Liston, Minority Leader Lundin, Pelton B, Pelton R, Simpson, Will, Jaquez Lewis, Colker, Marchman, Gonzalez, Fields, Zenzinger, Priola, Cutter, Winter, Buckner. With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 108 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senators Smallwood, Exum, Malika, Simpson, Pelton R, Pelton B, Liston, Kirkmeyer, Minority Leader Lundin, Gardner, Will, Van Winkle, Gonzalez, Colker, Majority Leader Moreno, Rodriguez, Jaquez Lewis, Janal, Zenzinger, Marchman, Priola, Buckner, Cutter, Henriksen, Sullivan, Bridges, Coleman. Please add the president. General order, second reading of bills, consent calendar. Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of second reading of bills, consent calendar.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The motion is adopted and the Senate will resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of the general order, second reading of bills, consent calendar, and Senator Bridges will take the chair.
The committee will come to order and the Cote rule is not relaxed. Will the clerk please read the title of all the bills on the consent calendar?
House Bill 1007, Representatives Catlin and Amabile, Senators Robertson, Pelton B, concerning crisis services information on student identification cards.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for the passage of the one bill listed on the consent calendar, which includes House Bill 1007.
Is there any discussion? Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to quickly thank the sponsors for coming up with this bill. You know, colleagues, over the last few years, we've had a lot of conversations around the rise in violent crime in our state and the rise of suicide in our state. And we have a lot of debates here at the well as to what is the right way to address both of those. And I'd encouraged all of us, colleagues, to maybe come up with something different, come up with better ideas versus the same old stale ideas that candidly haven't gotten us anywhere. So I wanted to thank the sponsors for bringing this. I don't know who came up with the concept, but to have something that is so non-intrusive, so affordable, and so common sense, I think was actually a fantastic idea. So again, I plan to support the bill and wanted to thank the sponsors for thinking outside the box on this issue. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Smallwood. Is there any further discussion of any of the bill on the consent calendar? Seeing none, the question before the body is the adoption of the bill on the general order, second reading of bills, consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. That bill is adopted. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is for the committee to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a bill under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave to report it has had under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. House Bill 1007 passed on second reading and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the report.
The motion is the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the Committee of the Whole report is adopted. House Bill 1007 passed on second reading in order to revise and place on the calendar for third reading and final passage. General orders, second reading of bills. Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself, the Committee of the Whole, for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The Senate will resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of the general orders, second reading of bills, and Senator Bridges will take the chair.
The committee will come to order and the coat rule is relaxed for everybody. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 78?
Senate Bill 78 by Senators Fields and Van Winkle, Representatives Judah and Lynch, concerning warranty reimbursements made by a motor vehicle manufacturer to motor vehicle dealers.
Senator Van Winkle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 78. There is no committee report, but there is an amendment at the desk, so I also move L001.
Oh, there is indeed an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read L001?
Amendment L001 by...
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to explain L001. Basically, this amendment is based on extensive stakeholder meetings with automakers and auto dealers, and we move L001.
Is there any further discussion of L001? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of L001. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. L001 is adopted. To the bill. Any further discussion? Senator?
To the bill?
Seeing no further discussion, then, the question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 78. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Ayes have it. That bill is adopted. And just a quick note to the folks gathered here, I do not have great vision. If you'd like to speak on a bill, please be in the well. If you're not, I will go ahead with the motion. So, with that, will the clerk please read the title, Senate Bill 102?
I don't like him being chair of the count. Can't see.
Senate Bill 102, Senators Gardner and Rodriguez, Representatives Weissman and Soper, concerning implementation of the Committee on Legal Services recommendations in connection with legislative review of state agencies' rules.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 102 on second reading.
Is there any discussion? Senator Gardner.
Thank you. Members, just for information, this is our annual rule review bill. As you know, the General Assembly reviews each and every rule promulgated annually during the cycle, and if we do not extend that rule, it expires at the end of our session or at the end of the month. We have 2 rules not being extended, and the reason I'm taking a little time is we're actually expecting for one of these rules that there will be a legislative fix for that, and we'll subsequently see this bill probably back from the House with removing one of them because there's some discussion about whether the grant of authority should have been made and wasn't. And this is a good process for us to ask the question and to take a good hard look at it. So with that, I ask for an aye vote on Senate Bill 102.
I appreciate you not asking us to read what is probably a very long bill. Is there any further discussion? Then that's fine. Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 102. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it, that bill is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1064?
House Bill 1064, Representatives Lukens and Young, Senator Marchman, concerning the enactment of the Interstate Teacher Mobility Compact.
Senator Marchman. Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the Education Committee report and the bill.
To the Education Committee report. Is there any discussion? Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We approved an amendment to sunset this bill by June 2026 if not enough states are a part of the compact.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of the Education Committee report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it, the Education Committee report is adopted. To the bill. Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colorado is in the midst of an educator shortage crisis, and immediate solutions are desperately needed. Districts across Colorado and the country are facing widespread teacher shortages. In Colorado, not a single district started the school year fully staffed. With roughly 3.7 million licensed teachers in the country, some of whom moved to Colorado, the policies for licensing an out-of-state teacher in Colorado are burdensome and a barrier to some. The Interstate Teacher Mobility Compact will provide relief to teachers that relocate to Colorado and get them back in the classroom quickly and efficiently. The Department of Defense has sought to support the development of interstate compacts as a mechanism for helping military families. In March of 2021, the DoD announced the selection of K-12 teachers as one of their first-round professions. The Council of State Governments is partnering with the DoD through the development of this new interstate compact. We are proud to be a founding member in bringing forth HB 1064 on behalf of DoD, trying to help military families, as well as to elevate the teaching profession. In the model, the only requirements for a teacher to use the compact are they have to hold an eligible license and go through our background check process. Teachers don't have to provide transcripts, take the praxis test again. They just have to provide their license. Once their license runs out, they renew here in Colorado. Maintaining state sovereignty is one of the cornerstones of this compact. It does not alter member states' abilities to regulate the teaching profession or teacher licensure. We've made an account for military spouses who quite often don't have full licenses due to the length of their stays when they're under orders at different places. So we are allowing those teachers, military spouses who have a license, if it's temporary or provisional, to come to Colorado. Finally, this is the 9th compact. We have, Colorado is addressing workforce shortage with 8 other compacts. We have a nurse compact, a medical compact, physical therapy, EMS, psychology, audiology and speech language, OT, counseling, and I would provide the same opportunity for teachers. I urge your support.
For military families and teachers, Senator Kolker, you looked like you had something to say. Senator Kolker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to state that previously it was brought up in our committee on a different bill that if we can save one life, then this bill would be worth it. To me, that's relatable to successfully teaching one student, or in the negative, ruining one student's passion for learning by placing unqualified people into the classroom who don't have hundreds of hours of training to help a struggling reader find the joy in reading, or unlocking math concepts, or discovering the tools to participate in government, or learning the complexities of chemistry to make future improvements in everyday life, or developing a musician. Qualified teachers learn how to write and give quality assessments, how to adjust their lessons to connect with a variety of learners, how to manage not just the academics, but the social and emotional needs of students, along the academic and daily needs of those with disabilities. Just wanting to teach because one has a subject area knowledge is not enough to be a teacher. One must have the training to address the needs of a multitude of learners. The strategies to keep it order in the classroom while connecting the lessons with all students. This isn't just taking people off the street because we need warm bodies with some basic understanding of the academic subject. A good chemist doesn't make a good teacher. A good reader doesn't make a good teacher, etc. This bill is about those who are already licensed and gone through the process, whether here in Colorado or in other states. It's not just about military families, but all licensed teachers coming to Colorado. All licensed teachers who want to teach in Colorado. I came here in 1999 as a licensed teacher in the state of Iowa. If we would have had this compact, I might still be in teaching. This is a way to address the needs immediately with qualified teachers, getting this compact passed and making sure that we have the people who are qualified to teach in our classrooms.
Senator Kolker, we're all grateful you're here. There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read L009?
Amendment L009, Senator Marchman, amend re-engross bill, page 3, line 13, strike uniform service and substitute armed forces.
Senator
page.
Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We were given notice by the Council of State Governments that they've made changes to the original Interstate Teacher Mobility Compact. Right now, there are 15 states working on this exact compact, and so it's important we get our language down. We are leading the way in this, though. We are ahead of any of the other states. But because we're all required to have the same language, we have to make these changes in the form of this amendment. This is primarily a technical amendment. There are two definitions that needed an adjustment to better match state and federal language covering members of the military and their spouses.
Senator,
And I move L009.
thank you for moving that amendment. Senator Lundin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I rise to speak about Amendment L009. I get it. I support the amendment. It's a necessary element of what we must do. Between the hearing in the Education Committee yesterday and today, or maybe it was Monday and today, we have found out from the 9 other partners, the Department of Defense and the other political think tank that's engaged in this bill, get that, there's 11 moving parts here. We have found out from one of those 11 moving parts that we need to tune up this bill. We need to make an adjustment. We need to make a change to be in alignment with those 11 other apparati that are engaged in this process. Now, why do I call that out? I call that out simply because we will have a little bit larger debate about this bill. This bill creates complexity in an effort to solve a problem in a way that I think at the end of the day is going to tangle us up and not get the problem solved in the time frame we could potentially solve it. So I support the amendment, but I want to call out, this is not our amendment. This is an amendment somebody from those 9 other states, the Department of Defense, or the political think tank that are helping with this require us to do. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Lundin. Any further discussion of L009? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of L009. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. L009 is adopted. To the bill. Senator Lundin.
Everybody okay? Yeah, I got my watch stuck. Oh. I think the chair actually acknowledged me. I'll just go ahead and start. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for that acknowledgement. We heard this bill in committee, and we heard some really powerful testimony that said we have a challenge filling our classrooms with qualified teachers. We desperately need them. And I kind of, as I do, did a little bit of cross-examination to understand the depth of the challenge and the problem. And the sponsors of the bill said the crisis we have is urgent today, and it's unforeseen or it's unseen before. We haven't had a crisis of this nature, and that's from a professional educator who knows, my goodness, This problem exists today, not a month from now, not a year from now, not 2 years or 3 years from now, but today. And the scope of the problem is something we've never seen before. And that problem is qualified teachers in the classroom. Well, the bill, to be clear, requires that we participate with 9 other legislatures in the formation of a compact. Now, it has been said that if you enjoy sausage or respect the law, you should never watch either being made. So this bill requires not 1 round of sausage making in a legislature, but 10 rounds of sausage making in a legislature. Now, our schedule, the Colorado schedule, is different than the Nebraska schedule. It's different than the Texas schedule, the Kansas schedule, and the other 9 states that would be in the compact. So we have an inherent complexity that we are building into this effort to create this broader compact that we don't have control over. We've got to drag 9 other legislatures along with us in order to solve this problem that is existential today. Furthermore, and those of you that have served our country through the Department of Defense, I salute you, I thank you, I acknowledge you, and I would call you to tell stories of the requirements of the Department of Defense that resolved in the summary statement of hurry up and wait. If you've had a military experience, you know that you must hurry up and wait, because that's just the way that gigantic bureaucracy of the Department of Defense moves. And so we have to work with the Department of Defense on this thing as well. So the timing of the compact, I called out and kind of asked some questions. When do we think that we're going to get this done? Well, we hope that we can get it done in the next year or 2. Well, I will tell you, as a 63-year-old man who has stood up 10 companies over the course of 30 years, hope is not a strategy. Hope is something that we all must lean into for our eternal existence. Hope is something we must lean into at the core of our being. But hope is not a strategy to solve an immediate existential policy or business crisis, which we clearly have. We need teachers in the classroom. Well, we had an individual down from my district, quite frankly, down in the Air Force Academy area, who was connected with the Department of Defense, and I was asking, the sponsors were unsure, but I asked the individual from the Department of Defense, how many teachers do we think we could actually get? And the answer came back, we think there are 18,000 military spouses, and about 13% of them need the credential to be allowed into the classroom. So I did quick back of the napkin math. That's 2,340 potential teachers. Well, amen, hallelujah, and pass the teachers. We need them, but we don't need them a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now. This project began back in 2020. When you start asking about how this has been developed and how it's going. It started back in 2020. They started thinking about this, working on this, and I checked my calendar, and here we are in the first quarter of 2023. We're 2 years and 3 months past the beginning of the idea to let's do something, and we have a crisis. And that crisis, quite frankly, existed in 2020. It's just gotten worse since then. So the challenge I have isn't with the let's do this, let's allow these military spouses the ability to come into our classrooms. The challenge I have is we are building a Rube Goldberg device that requires us to walk around the block and down the street and back home in order to get across the street. It's just crazy how complicated this is. And we can actually solve the problem today. And this problem could easily be solved. And here is a method of doing exactly that. We have in the Colorado statutes 2260.5201 the establishment of various types of teacher licensing that allow for individuals into the classroom. Well, what I'm proposing is let's just add another element. Let's call it the military spouse teacher license. And what it is essentially excuse me, is a provisional license that says if you're teaching somewhere else, if you have either a certification or a license for certification in another state, but you haven't passed all the processes of becoming licensed here in this state, and you're willing to go through a background check, just the Colorado CBI background check, a fingerprint check to make sure you don't have a criminal record, then we would issue to you a provisional license. And I think we might have, at this point, an amendment at the desk to deal with this.
You ready for that?
I am.
Here we go. There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read L007?
Amendment L007 by Senator Lundin, amend Green Gross Bill, page 2, second
Senator
line.
Lundin.
Now, the amendment's about a page long, but I will save you, save the reader the effort of reading the whole amendment. I'll do it myself, but first, before I do that, I move Amendment L007 to House Bill 1064.
To the amendment, Senator
Thank
Lundin.
you. So what this amendment does is what I was starting to describe earlier. It creates essentially a provisional license if you are a military spouse into the state, been teaching elsewhere, have credentials that show you've been teaching elsewhere, and you're willing to submit to a background check. Today, tomorrow, within the next 10 or 14 days, however long it takes to do the background check, we will get you into a classroom. Presto, changeo, 2,340 teachers available in Colorado tomorrow or next week, not 2 or 3 or 4 years from today. When you have an existential crisis, when you have a problem today, why wait until tomorrow to solve the problem? Why drag 9 other states along to get at that solution? Why engage the Department of Defense? Well, there are underlying motives behind this bill, but I never want to challenge the motives of any bill sponsor or any piece of legislation. There are other things afoot that are not necessarily, in my mind, beneficial, but the problem is the bill as drafted doesn't get to a solution to the problem today like this amendment would. Now, this amendment's not quite a strike blow. It's a lot of the bill goes away. It's a 25-page bill. About 24 of those pages go away. You replace with 1 page. We keep the petition clause, which says if the people of Colorado don't like this bill, they can stand up and say, hey, we want to reconsider that, and we're going to, as the people of Colorado, under a petition law, toss that away. But Amendment L007 does everything that the sponsors want to do, except it doesn't take years and years to do it, except it doesn't require us to drag 9 other state legislatures along, except it doesn't put us in the spot like we talked about earlier with that amendment that was offered where at the last minute, somebody else is telling us, oh, hey, you've got to tweak your law, you've got to tweak your process. Others are controlling what's happening with our effort to get teachers into the classroom in Colorado. Colleagues, this is an actual policy debate on the floor of this Colorado State Senate, and we're having an education policy debate in front of a bunch of educators and the superintendent and board members from Lewis Palmer District 38, which is my home district. Both of my children graduated from high school. They're over here on this side of the Senate chamber listening in on this debate. And I'll bet you, if you take the time, walk over to them and ask them, do we need more teachers in the classroom today? Every single one of them is going to say, yes, today, not a year from now, not 2 years from now, not 3 years from now. And for heaven's sakes, don't put a millstone around our neck that is 9 other state legislatures. Don't put a millstone around our neck that is the Department of Defense. Just solve the problem. Your support of Amendment L007 would do exactly that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I urge colleagues your support of Amendment L007.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I request a title ruling on L007.
We'll take a quick senatorial 5. The question that we have is a title ruling. Given that L007 changes entirely the title of the bill, it is the chair's ruling that this amendment is beyond the scope of the title. But there isn't another amendment at the desk, looks like. Will the clerk please read L008?
Amendment L008 by Senator Lundin, amend the Education Committee report dated February 27, 2023, page 1, line
Senator
strike
Lundin.
420.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the clerk of the Senate for reading the beginning of this amendment. This amendment, and just for the sakes of civics, which incidentally this body yesterday said we don't want to test on civics anymore. Just in the case of civics or the interest of the promotion of civics, we have this rule here that you can't offer an amendment, you can't do something to a bill if the amendment doesn't fit under the title. And we try and write our titles as narrow as we can possibly write them so that doesn't happen to us. Well, I will admit, and the chair has in this case, which is unusual, frankly, ruled correctly that previous amendment did. Did the chair
Senator
just gavel
Lundin,
me down for
come on.
questioning his judgment?
Yeah, it was be outside the rules of the Senate. We can give a civics lesson on that one too. Senator Lundin.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the latitude the chair is offering me in my civics lesson that I'm offering up here. Since the previous amendment didn't fit under the title and I was appropriately ruled as out of order and therefore the amendment couldn't be brought, in anticipation of that, we brought an additional amendment, which is L008. I move now Amendment L008.
To the amendment.
And I'll explain it to you. So what this bill does and what this amendment would allow for is the creation of a compact. It's a 25-page behemoth that requires 9 other states to participate, the Department of Defense. I'm not going to go all the way through because we actually want to get to committee today. The arguments that I've just made challenging that compact. Instead, I'm saying, you know what? Politics is the art of the possible. I have a possibility here. Let's go ahead and say yes to the compact. Let's let that bump along for the next year or 2 or 3. Let's just let that process go ahead. But in the meantime, let's, and this is what the amendment does, is it says that idea that Lundin had in the Education Committee about creating a military spouse teacher license that's provisional, subject to a background check, let's let that happen in the meantime so we can get those teachers in the classroom today. Sounds like a good idea. To be perfectly honest and in full disclosure, because I always want to be candid, meaning offering up, you don't have to cross-examine me to get to the truth. This amendment also says that if the compact hasn't gotten its act together within 2 years by 2025, then our effort to participate in the compact goes away and this provisional license becomes a permanent pathway. So we solve the problem today. We honor the Senate bill or House bill, excuse me, 1064, allow for the compact to do its thing, but we say to the compact people, the 9 other states and the Department of Defense and the education policy think tank that we're dragging along with us, you have to get your act together within 2 years, because if you don't get it done, then we're just going to go on our own. And we're going to do it in this other way that we've already put in place. Solves the problem today, honors the compact, and puts a time frame on it that seems reasonable to me. If they can't get their act together in 2 years, they're never going to get their act together. Let's move on. That's what Amendment L008 does. Common sense, straightforward, problem solving, honoring the underlying bill that's being offered as well, fits under the title. I urge a vote of yes on L008. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank the good senator from Monument for bringing this amendment. You know, it just seems like a friendly amendment to me. You're still going to get your compact, but we can solve a problem right now. You know, if we were in the private sector, that's what you do in business. You solve it right then. You don't wait 2 or 3 years. So it just seems to me that this is a really friendly amendment. You still get the compact. I urge an aye vote.
Senator Kolker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, I urge a no vote. Working on a number of different compacts, this particular license or amendment would actually probably put us out of compliance with the compact. Now, I think the bill in and of itself is a tool, and I think this amendment in and of itself is a tool. So I urge a no vote on the amendment, but ask the sponsor to consider a late bill for this amendment. Thank you.
Senator Lundin.
Au contraire, excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Au contraire. I would ask, how does this amendment put us out of compliance with the compact? It allows everything that the compact, which is going to take a year or 2 or 3 to get put in place anyway, it allows all of that to go ahead. It keeps this bill as now, instead of a 25-page behemoth, it's a 26-page behemoth because I've added a page to it. It allows everything else to go ahead. I'm waiting for an actual argument against the amendment.
Thank you, Monfrere. Any further discussion of the amendment? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of L008. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. Noes have it. That amendment is lost. Is there any further discussion of House Bill 1064? Seeing none, the question Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to come up and give an update. As we're working on this, this is nationally being worked on. There are now 15 total states who have introduced legislation to join the compact, including Colorado. Colorado has got we've got Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, Mississippi, Florida, Georgia, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Kansas, Utah, Washington, Oregon, California, and Hawaii. And of those, we are the nationwide leader. We're furthest ahead in regards to the process. 2 other states have passed at least 1 chamber. Several others have moved this out of committee. And Utah is holding a floor vote this week, with their session ending Friday. Kansas has also passed the Senate and is in committee on the House side. I urge an aye vote.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And so I'd caution my colleagues as we contemplate and move forward with this. Texas doesn't even meet every year as a legislature. Now, I was not able to Google it fast enough to get the answer on the fly. I don't even know if they're in session this year. So, and we can't move forward until the compact gets put together. So the reality is, we may be de facto locking ourselves out for at least a year based on Texas alone, and you got now 14 other states that you're playing with. So I urge you to, contemplate a better way forward, because the crisis is today. The teachers are needed today, not a year from now or 2 years from now. I oppose the bill because it actually doesn't solve the problem. It creates additional problems. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Buckner.
Thank you. First of all, Texas is not in the compact. Second of all, no, I don't think she said so. I guess we could do rapid replay, but no, they're not. And then secondly, the good senator from Monument does not look like you are 63. You look good. I have sponsored several compacts, and the last compact I sponsored was the Audiology and Speech and Language Therapy Compact, because that's what my background is. And since that compact has gone into effect, we have learned that the results of these compacts are really positive. We increased jobs. We gave opportunities to other speech pathologists who were maybe the next state over to improve their businesses and get more clients. And this bill is going to increase access to education, and I believe it's really important because it's going to improve and increase employment opportunities. The other thing that is so important about this compact is the fact that reciprocity is not new. Reciprocity is a good thing, and 1064 is good for Colorado. This is just one more tool in our toolbox to get qualified teachers for Colorado. So I stand in strong support, as Chair of Education, I stand in strong support of House Bill 1064.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Mullica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just quickly want to stand in support as well. Members, a lot of you know I'm a nurse. We have a similar compact for nurses. Obviously, we know the role that nurses play for the people of Colorado and their care. I think teachers obviously play just as big of a role in the lane that they, in how they take care of our children here in Colorado, and I think that we should be doing all that we can to eliminate some of that bureaucracy when they are coming into our state, to really try to make sure that we're getting more teachers into the profession. And so, I believe that if it's good enough for nurses, it should be good enough for teachers, and I ask for a yes vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1064. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. 1064 is adopted. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is for the committee to rise and report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The committee will rise and report.
Thank you.
Get Gardner and count this. Gardner.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave to report it has had under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 78 is amended. Senate Bill 102 passed on second reading and ordered, engrossed, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1064 is amended, passed on second reading, and ordered, revised, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the report.
The motion is the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. Are there any no votes? There is an amendment on the desk, sort of. There we go. Will the clerk please read Amendment Cow 1?
Amendment Cow 001, House Bill 1064, Senator Lundin, move to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to show the following.
Senator
Lundin.
Lundin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I just wanted to call out, you are exceptionally bright and insightful, but you are not clairvoyant. I understand why you were hesitating. You didn't know what the amendment was until we actually handed it to you.
Senator Lundin, I guess I could have guessed. It is number one.
Fair enough. Mr. President, you, I think, were managing other business during our Committee of the Whole meeting, and you missed the fact that we were able to have this conversation about the critical need for educators in our classroom today, not a year from now, not 2 years from now, and we had that debate in the Committee of the Whole as opposed to the Colorado Senate in front of a number of teachers and board members and leadership from Lewis Palmer School District 38, which is the district from which both of my children graduated. And now that we are in the full Senate and considering the Committee of the Whole report, I am offering up a challenged or a different version of what appeared to have just happened in the committee. And to do so, I move Cow Amendment 001.
Thank you for moving the amendment eventually. And Senator Lundin, you're right, I was not here. I don't know that I would say I missed it. I wasn't present. I didn't miss the debate. To the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, as I was saying, although you miss very little, but you aren't clairvoyant, and I just wanted to acknowledge that. So this amendment, and I'm going to go all the way back through this conversation because there were a few members that were taking care of other business while we were on second readings in the Committee of the Whole and may have missed the discussion. What House Bill 1064 does is it seeks to solve a problem. We have a problem of just the number of educators we have in our classrooms. We do not have enough educators. The sponsors of the bill have correctly identified the fact that this is a crisis that has been unseen before, and it's a crisis today. It's a problem we must solve immediately. And so this concept of a compact that, as presented, the bill was presented, it required us to participate with 9 other state legislatures, the Department of Defense, and education policy think tank, in order to come together and begin to address the idea of flexibility and mobility among teachers who are military spouses among various states. And the compact originally had 10 members. I understand that it's moving forward and adding more members, which adds more complexity, which may delay the solution. So we offered an amendment that said, compact, good. We honor the compact. We support the compact. We want the compact to go forward. But the reality is the crisis is now. And we want those teachers now. And so Colorado, while we're waiting for the compact to move forward, will create a new military spouse teacher license that's a provisional license based on that military spouse who's teaching and has a credential or a license in another state, subjecting themselves to a background check here in Colorado, and then submission to the law, which would now include a military spouse teacher license, to become a teacher in Colorado immediately, as opposed to a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now. So I would argue this is a friendly amendment. It simply says, let's solve the immediate problem now. Let's let the compact move forward. And there is a little bit more accountability. The amendment also said if the compact doesn't have its act together in 2 years, by 2025, then we'll just go ahead as Colorado and allow military spouses to move into the state in this provisional way as set up under this amendment. So now we will take, unlike the vote that happened on the Committee of the Whole, and this is part of the civics lesson, we are going to take a recorded vote where I am arguing that what we actually heard was this body voting to pass that second amendment that says compact's good, reciprocity great, delay bad. Let's actually let those teachers in now. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I urge a no vote on this Cow amendment. There are only 10 states needed to enact the compact, and we have more than 10 who are deciding on it now. This is not a friendly amendment. I would urge a no vote.
Question before the body is the adoption of Cow Amendment number 1 to the Committee of the Whole report. Are there any no votes? Senators Roberts, Mullica, Exum, Majority Leader Moreno, Coleman, Janal, Rodriguez, Kolker, Marchman, Fields, Riola, Buckner, Winter, Cutter, Henriksen, Jaquez Lewis, Gonzalez, Hanson, Senzinger, Sullivan, Danielson. Please add the president. With a vote of 13 ayes, 22 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, that amendment fails. Question before the body is the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. Are there any no votes? Senators Pelton R., Rich, Baisley, Liston, Pelton B., Kirkmeyer, Will. With a vote of 28 ayes, 7 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the Committee of the Whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 78 is amended. Senate Bill 102 passed on second reading, order engrossed, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1064, as amended, passed on second reading, order revised, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Consideration of governor's appointments. Consent calendar. Will the clerk please read all of the appointments listed on the consent calendar?
Members of the Board of Trustees for Colorado Mesa University, effective January 1st, 2023, for terms expiring December 31st, 2026. Kasia Ivanichko McLeod of Denver, Colorado, reappointed. Daniel Ramos of Denver, Colorado, reappointed. Joyce Sekaran of Grand Junction, Colorado, appointed. Members of the Board of Trustees for Metropolitan State University of Denver, for a term expiring December 31st, 2023. Olivia Mendoza of Lakewood, Colorado, occasioned by the resignation of Mara Carrera of Lone Tree, Colorado, appointed, effective January 1st, 2023, for terms expiring December 31st, 2026. Russell Knowles of Denver, Colorado, reappointed. Marissa Molina of Denver, Colorado, reappointed. Jerry Glick of Denver, Colorado, appointed.
Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the confirmation of all the appointments listed on the consent calendar, which includes members of the Board of Trustees for Colorado Mesa University and members of the Board of Trustees for Metropolitan State University of Denver.
Is there any discussion? The motion is the confirmation of all the appointments on the consent calendar. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the appointments are confirmed. Message from the governor.
February 23rd, 2023, Colorado Senate. Dear Senators, on behalf of the Board of Regents of the University of Colorado, I'm pleased to forward to you the following appointment: member of the University of Colorado Hospital Authority Board of Directors, Lynette Crow Iverson, from the 5th Congressional District for a term effective November 3rd, 2022, and continuing until May 31st, 2025, or until a successor is appointed by the Board of Regents appointed. This appointment was approved by the Board of Regents at the November 3rd, 2022 regular board meeting. A copy of the resolution to this effect and biographical information are attached pursuant to Section 23-21-503, subsection 2, Colorado Revised Statutes. Appointments to the Hospital Authority Board of Directors from the congressional districts are subject to the advice and consent of the Senate. Sincerely, F.E. Amin, Deputy Secretary to the Board of Regents.
Health and Human Services. Delivery to the governor.
February 28, 2023, to the governor for signature on Tuesday, February 28, 2023, at 1:33 p.m. Senate Bills 10, 40, 136, 137, 138, 139, 140, 141, and 142.
Announcements. Members, we do have some birthdays to celebrate. That includes all of the August birthdays. We want to make sure we adequately embarrass you and ourselves. That would include Senators Baisley, Liston, Bridges, and Janal that have birthdays in August that we will not be able to celebrate while we're in session. So would the Senate choir please assemble to wish them a very happy August birthday.
Who else is coming up? Oh, sure.
You're trying to ruin my gubernatorial run?
Oh, your gubernatorial run. Is that an announcement?
Let's get this show on the road, choir.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy
Birthday, dear Senators.
Happy birthday to you. May the dear Lord bless you, shower graces on you. May the dear Lord bless you, Senators. May the dear Lord bless you.
Announcements. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, the Senate Judiciary Committee will be meeting this afternoon at 1:30 p.m. in the old Supreme Court. We are laying over the confirmation of the Director of the Department of Corrections, and so we'll be hearing first up House Bill 1145, Senate Bill 54, Senate Bill 24, and then Senate Bill 103. I look forward to seeing you all at 1:30.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee, we will meet at 10:45 this morning. We have Senate Bill 13 on our calendar.
Senator Pelton.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to let everyone know, you're all invited to the Warwick Hotel tonight for a reception from 5:30 to 7 by the Colorado Optometric Association. They will also be, that's tomorrow evening, I'm sorry, Thursday, tomorrow evening. And then Friday morning, they will be serving breakfast burritos here in the basement. The Colorado Doctors of Optometry would love to see you there.
Senator Buckner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Education Committee will be meeting at 1:30 in room 357. We have two pieces of legislation today, two bills, Senate Bill 71 and Senate Bill 149.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I have a moment of personal privilege?
Granted.
Thank you. Members, I was not going to get up and say anything, but I have two daughters. And if they would have come to me and said what happened to me today and to the good senator from Mesa County, I would have said, why didn't you get up there and stand up for yourself? Why didn't you get up and say something? When you see that something is wrong, you should stand up. You should speak up. What happened today in this chamber, I was very deeply hurt by and extremely disappointed. This is not how I have come to know this chamber to act. We all don't agree on things. We may not really like each other in some situations, but we have always treated people with respect in this chamber. And today, I felt like that did not happen. The resolution, SJR 23006, that came forward, myself and the good senator from Mesa County weren't even asked to participate. We did have a couple members, and I appreciate you. We had a couple members who came up to us and said, please come down to the well and join all the rest of the women. But we weren't asked to participate in this resolution. And I think we all have a pretty good idea of why. But what I find extremely disappointing is, first of all, I'm going to read you a section out of this resolution. Whereas the ERA would transform what is currently implicit into the ambiguous and strengthen the bedrock of our most dearly held American value, that all people are created equal. As one of the first states to allow women to vote, several years before the 19th Amendment gave all women in America this right, Colorado has proudly stood by and for women. Until today. This is what I find so disappointing. And honestly, I'm just hurt. What women fought for over 100 years ago, they fought hard. And the leaders of that campaign, they didn't always agree with one another. But they found a way to come together and fight so that we, as women, all women would have the right to vote. They were committed to the enfranchisement of all American women. What happened today is there were at least 2 women in this chamber that were disenfranchised, and it was based on their political party, their political affiliation. That's wrong. That is not
what women fought for over 100 years ago in the 19th Amendment. That is not what was fought for in the Equal Rights Amendment. We had an opportunity to come together with both Republicans and Democrats to put forward a resolution that we could all be proud of and that we could all stand behind and get behind. That did not happen today. And again, that is not what I've come to know in this chamber to be about. But that's what happened today. I was very hurt. We basically had to have the journal changed to show that it was a voice vote on this resolution, when we could have had all 35 members on this resolution. But there was a conscious decision to not have that happen. This is not what we're about, and I don't want this to go forward in any other case. So that's why I came forward. Thank you for the moment.
Senator Rich.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you. I'm not going to belabor this, but this is the first time, and this is my 5th year in the legislature, and it is the first time, the very first time, that I have been excluded from this resolution. And so I agree with everything that the good senator from Weld County said, and I wish that this had not happened. This is not how we should be doing business. Thank you.
Senator Buckner.
Thank you, Mr. President. And may I ask for a moment of personal privilege?
Granted.
If anyone in this chamber or in this Capitol knows how it feels to be excluded, I know how that feels. As Majority Caucus Chair, this was definitely a miss today. We have more women than ever in this chamber, which is amazing, and we need to always stand together. So I am going to make sure that we work better at coming together from this moment on. We owe you an apology. I don't think there was any intention of leaving you out, but it happened, and it will not happen again. I respect both of you so much. I respect every woman in this chamber. So I don't know how the planning came about. It doesn't matter. It happened. It was a miss. It won't happen again. And we owe you an apology, and I hope you will accept the apology. Thank you.
May I ask for a moment of personal privilege?
Granted.
It is not on this topic. So if you would like to continue speaking on this topic, I apologize for interrupting. I got busy during second reading on our consent agenda. There was a bill that I wanted to speak to, and the reason why I wanted to speak to this bill is because we have some folks that are in the Capitol today that are here to talk to each of you about mental health issues and how we can do a better job of elevating mental health issues, and in particular, preventing suicide. And so the bill that I wanted to just very quickly highlight, we passed very quickly on second reading because it was on the consent calendar. And that really speaks to the fact that it is a concept that we all agree on. And so therefore, it went really quickly. I just wanted to do a quick shout out to the folks that are here that will be coming and speaking to you today from Mental Health Colorado to talk about suicide prevention. It is a very serious topic. We have a really high rate of suicide in our state, and we need to be doing all that we can to address this from a policy level. But I would just like to encourage members to be open to those conversations with the folks that are here today advocating on behalf of suicide prevention, because they have powerful stories that they're willing to share with you. And so I apologize for missing my opportunity, but I did not want today to go by without acknowledging the good folks that are in this Capitol doing this work, because it is enormously taxing. It is very, very difficult sharing with one another, sharing with policymakers their experiences. They're deeply personal, they hurt, and they're trying to do good by making a difference. And they're doing that by being here today. So I hope that you all will welcome them, listen to their stories, and hopefully it will make you feel even more proud that we unanimously voted in favor of House Bill 1007 today.
Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. Seeing no further announcements, I move that the Senate adjourn until tomorrow, Thursday, March 2nd at 9 a.m.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no.
No, I'm enjoying this too much.
The rest of us will eventually go home. Senator Gardner will stay for many, many days. The ayes have it, and the Senate will adjourn until 9 a.m. Thursday, March 2nd, 2023.